There are lots of videos like this one online that try to give you all sorts of advice in inverted commas, which I personally think is very dangerous, which is why I do reaction videos to them in my endeavors to help you understand law. So please do hit that like button and subscribe if you like my content. So let's get into this video. Let's see what he's got to say, and I will give you my thoughts on it. Let's go.
So here I am on my way home, and I see this car that has this banner on it. Well, a clamp, and it says it's an offense to remove it, right? So what they've done is basically formed a contract by...
Right, so let's just pause there. They're not forming a contract. It's nothing to do with contract law at all. The main reason that these clamps are put on vehicles is either that they are not declared as off-road and they are being kept and used on a road, or they're untaxed, or they're not roadworthy, or in the case of lorries and other vans and things like that, they are overloaded. There's all sorts of other reasons. So they can be clamped for that reason, and there are fees to get those clamps removed. But it's absolutely nothing at all to do with contract law. But let's see what else he has to say.
Binding your car like this, right? Now, if you want to reverse this, before they even bind anything on your car, what you should... So this is what you should basically say if you have a situation, if you know that you're living basically on the edge. You put a sticker on your car that says that any car that anyone that puts a clamp on my car or touches my car will be considered as vandalism, and the fine is...
Right, let's break that down. Anyone that touches the car, puts anything on the car, puts a clamp on the car, he says is then vandalism, because you put some sort of notice or sign on the car to say that if you do those things, it's considered vandalism, which is wrong, by the way, because if the DVLA or the DVSA or the police or a local authority are clamping your car, they're doing so with a valid legal reason and the authority to do so. It's not vandalism. The second point is that he said that it's a fine. Now, no individual has any authority or jurisdiction to fine anybody. So that is flat out wrong. Not only that, if it were to say, it doesn't, but if it were to say that he will charge you £1,000 for some sort of contract reason that he says, that's not how it works either. Because what is the contract for? Let's take, for example, you go onto a car park and there's a sign that says you park here, you pay, or even you park here only if you're a customer, or even if you park here but only for a limited amount of time. Now, it will be managed, and that's what we refer to as an automated contract. So whether you're paying or not, you're accepting the terms of the contract by driving on and parking. If you don't like it, you drive away. So many arguments in that situation might come about whereby if you just drive away and you don't park, you're not accepting the terms of the contract. For example, if you then pay, you're paying for the parking. There doesn't need to be anybody there issuing you a ticket. And even there doesn't need to be a ticket at all. The machine, as they very often do these days, can operate by number plate recognition. They recognize that your vehicle's on the car park, you put a payment in against your number plate, and they know that you've paid for the parking. That's a contract that's formed on a car park. Putting a sign in your vehicle when it's on the road unlawfully, or there's unpaid vehicle tax or any other kind of unpaid fines, or it's unsafe, or any of the other reasons that they can legitimately clamp the vehicle, putting a sign there is not forming any kind of contract, and it is not negating the law that allows them to do that in the first place. But let's carry on.
Is £1,000. What you're doing is that you're forming a contract with them before they do anything.
So for all the reasons I've said, that is not true. You're not forming any kind of contract. And I'll explain why I do these videos in a moment.
So as soon as you see a clamp like that, you have just nullified whatever bill they've put for you by you having your own. Make sure you have obviously pictures of it, but it's an argument that you can hold in court and you will win.
So when someone makes comments like this, it's an argument you can use in court and you will win. So somebody then will take that situation and say, right, I've come back, I found a clamp, or even before that, he's suggesting that you preempt it. You put this sign in your window, and then if you come back to a clamp, you can use that argument in court and win. Now, I'm not sure what this chap does for a living, but he's in a suit and shirt. But if he is a lawyer, then this is negligent because it's wrong. But even if he's not a lawyer, this can come across as legal advice. You will know that I go to great lengths to tell you on my channel that this is not legal advice, even though I am qualified to do so. But I can't possibly be giving specific, discrete legal advice to the mass populace who are watching my videos, because every situation will be very, very slightly different. Now, I can give you arguments that you can run in court and, in my view, win, but I'll never say you will win unless the very few cases, and there are very few cases, where it's absolutely clear-cut, there's no ambiguity whatsoever, and in those we often use the phrase, it must succeed or it must fail. There are very few like that. There are certain cases that I can say to you, if you have not done X, Y, Z, you do not meet the terms that are required, or the rules that are required, or the law that's required, and it will not work, or your defense will not work, or the claim against you will not succeed. So all of those sorts of things. Some of them are, you have rights. So for example, under the Consumer Rights Act, you have certain rights that you can uphold. For example, if you've bought it off premises or by distance purchase, you have 14 days beginning the day after you receive the item to send it back. Now, it might be at your cost to send it back as long as it's been made clear by the trader, but you have the right to send that back. And also, quite similarly, if it fails within the first 30 days, you can reject it. You have the right of rejection. It's the short-term right to reject. So if you came to me and said, I bought this thing and it broke through no fault of mine within the first 2 weeks, whatever, and you reject it for that reason, then you have the right to reject it. But even then, you can see that I've still qualified it, because if you've damaged it, then you can't send it back for that reason. You can't say, well, I had this for 2 weeks, I used it, I broke it, but I'm now rejecting it. You can't say that. But even that required a hypothetical question from me to you, the hypothetical viewer, in a hypothetical situation. So even then, it still requires qualification. So when this chap says you can use this argument in court and you will win, potentially you could rely on what he's said, or somebody could rely on what he's said, and sue him for providing negligent advice, which is why I go to great lengths to say this is not legal advice. But let's see what else he has to say.
You are forming a contract, like the way they have tried to form a contract with you by saying, by you tampering with the clamp, touching the clamp or whatever, you are basically entering into a contract of paying £1,000.
Now, obviously, all of that is untrue, but just allow me to clear that from the screen and move to another screen here. You can see this one here. This just one of the examples. There's various bits of legislation that provide for offences for interference with a clamp. This is one of them. The Tribunal Courts and Enforcement Act of 2007. A person's guilty of an offence if he intentionally obstructs a person lawfully acting as an enforcement agent, interferes with controlled goods without lawful excuse. They're controlled, by the way, if there's a clamp on it, for example. Persons guilty of an offence under this is liable on summary conviction to imprisonment not exceeding 51 weeks and a fine on level 4 or both. And so this is just one example of the legislation that provides offences. It is nothing to do, as he suggests, with a contract. If we skip back a bit, he suggests that this is something to do with a contract.
It's a contract of paying £1,000. And
it isn't. It's nothing to do with the contract law at all. So I will cut that short. But the reason I do these videos is because people like this do, and with all respect to the chap doing this, you are, with respect, wholly misconceiving the law on this situation. Now, for anyone else watching this, the reason I do these videos is because these videos, like this one here, get so many thousands of views and so many people read them, and I see the comments and people saying, thank you for sharing the truth with everybody and the light with everybody, and now we are more educated because now we know how to fight back and all of this sort of stuff. All of which is wrong, because those people will end up in a far worse situation than they were to begin with. If they end up in a situation where they've got the vehicle clamped, it's either because it's unpaid tax, it's not been declared off-road and it should have been, it's not roadworthy, or it's overloaded, or any other kind of reasons. And by interfering it, then they are going to be committing a further offence, liable to further fines, and may end up in prison. That might be rare, but it's in the regulations and the legislation to provide for that. So if you see things like this, and the same goes, by the way, if you are a viewer internationally and this England and Wales law doesn't apply to you, there will be a similar law, trust me, that broadly covers the same things. Even if it's not word for word the same, there will be a broad version of the same. And these kind of, put a notice on your car and then you're binding them to a contract, it is all nonsense with respect. So please don't fall for those, but please do like my video and subscribe if you like this clarity that I hope to bring to you. And as always, thank you for watching.